The rain was merciless that evening, the kind that slashed against the windows and drenched the streets until even the strongest umbrellas bent under its weight. The sky was a dull gray canvas, torn apart by flashes of lightning that made the city look both alive and dead at the same time. Cars splashed through puddles without mercy. Horns blaring, people rushing, everyone too wrapped up in their own struggles to notice the pain around them. For most, it was just another stormy night to endure. But for one man sitting in the back of a luxurious black Bentley, this night was about to alter the very fabric of his existence. Leonard Hawthorne was a name people whispered in awe and envy. The newspapers called him the silent king of steel and glass. A self-made millionaire who built skyscrapers that kissed the sky and luxury condos that only the richest could afford. At 40, too, his face was as sharp as the suits he wore, eyes that rarely softened, a jawline that could cut through marble, and a voice that made assistants tremble. Money had given him everything: power, control, fear, respect, but not warmth. His heart had long been buried beneath contracts, deals, and a constant hunger for more. He wasn't cruel in the way of monsters, but in the way of men who forget that others feel the sting of cold. He had convinced himself that kindness was a weakness. Success, he believed, was forged in fire and isolation. As his car slowed at a red light near an old district of the city, Leonard barely glanced out the tinted windows. Usually, he would be absorbed in his tablet, reading market reports or scrolling through emails, but something caught his attention that night. A figure, a crumpled shadow, lay on the wet sidewalk near a shuttered bakery. Lightning revealed more than just one shadow. It was two, an elderly couple, collapsed together, their fragile bodies trembling under the storm as if the rain had decided they were nothing more than forgotten leaves to be washed away. At first, Leonard thought his eyes deceived him. Surely no one would be left lying like that. But when the car headlights fully illuminated the scene, his chest tightened in a way he couldn't explain. The old man's hand was outstretched, covering the frail woman as if shielding her from the cold. They weren't moving, except for a faint shiver that seemed to echo louder than the rain itself. "Sir, should we continue?" his driver asked softly, already assuming the answer. For men like Leonard, detours weren't expected. In their world, lives were schedules and strangers were burdens. But Leonard didn't answer. His hand was already reaching for the door handle, a strange urgency pulsing in his veins. Before the driver could protest, Leonard stepped into the downpour, his $1,000 shoes sinking into the flooded pavement. The rain struck his hair, his suit, but he didn't care. He moved toward them as if something deep, something long forgotten inside him, had yanked him out of his fortress of comfort. The closer he came, the more his breath hitched. The old woman's face was pale, her lips trembling from cold. The old man's skin was wrinkled, his eyes half shut, but still he kept his body draped protectively over her. Their clothes were thin, soaked through, clinging to them like a second skin. They must have been there for hours, forgotten by a world that didn't stop for the weak. Leonard knelt down, his knees hitting the wet ground. "Hey," his voice was rough, as though unused for anything soft. "Can you hear me?" The old man stirred weakly, his lips parting. Please, my wife's shoe." His voice was no more than a whisper torn apart by the storm. Leonard swallowed, his throat tight. He pulled off his own blazer, wrapping it over the woman. She flinched slightly, but then stilled as if her body recognized the warmth. Something inside Leonard cracked. How had he spent millions on imported art, on cars that collected dust, while two souls had been left like this in the rain? His driver ran up with an umbrella, holding it over them. "Sir, we should call emergency services." "Do it now," Leonard barked, though not with his usual authority. This time it was desperation. His eyes locked on the couple, watching every weak breath as if afraid it would stop. Minutes later, the ambulance sirens wailed, cutting through the rain. Paramedics lifted the frail couple, strapping oxygen masks, moving quickly. Leonard stood there drenched, watching as though his very heart had been scooped out of his chest and placed into their fragile bodies. For reasons he couldn't explain, he followed the ambulance, ordering his driver to head straight to the hospital. Inside the sterile walls of the ER, Leonard sat on a bench, his expensive clothes dripping onto the polished floor, ignored by nurses who were too busy saving lives to care about social status. He watched through the glass as the doctors worked. His mind drifted to memories he had long buried. He remembered his own parents, not rich, not powerful, but kind. He remembered nights when storms would shake their small home, and his father would wrap his mother in blankets, whispering that love was stronger than cold. He remembered the day they died in a car accident, leaving a 17-year-old Leonard to face the world alone. And he remembered the vow he made, to never be weak again, to never let love distract him from survival. That vow had made him rich, but it had also made him hollow. Hours passed before the doctor approached. Leonard stood immediately, his chest pounding. "They'll live," the doctor said. Relief flooded Leonard like light breaking through storm clouds. "But they're malnourished, severely dehydrated, and suffering from exposure. It's a miracle they lasted as long as they did." Leonard nodded, his throat too tight to reply. When the couple was stable, he was allowed inside. The old man's eyes flickered open, cloudy but alive. He looked at Leonard with confusion, then gratitude. "Yo, you stopped," he whispered. Leonard sat beside him. "Yes, I couldn't just leave you." Tears formed in the old man's eyes. "Many have passed us by. Nobody stopped. We thought we'd die there." His voice cracked. "Thank you, son." That word, son, stabbed Leonard deeper than he expected. He gripped the old man's frail hand, feeling the fragility, the veins like fragile threads. "You're safe now. I promise you'll be safe." And in that moment, Leonard realized he wasn't making a promise just to them. He was making a promise to himself, to the boy he once was, to the parents he had lost, to the humanity he had buried under gold and steel. That stormy night had taken everything he believed about strength and torn it apart. For the first time in years, Leonard Hawthorne felt something richer than money. He felt purpose.